And first out of the gate, we have Class A Threat Disgardium book number 1, a LitRPG series written by Dan Sugarloff. This is actually an interesting story. I actually was able to talk to the author about this particular story. I did an author interview with him on our website at litrpgpodcast.com. You can check that out there if you want the fuller story. But I guess there were some issues with like the cover art potentially not describing the story particularly well. But here is it is 517 pages, $3.09, not available on Kindle Limited. And here's the novel description from the publisher. Our future, non-citizens and individuals of low social standing can only find work in one place, the virtual world of Disgardium. And that might mean mining ore. It could just as well mean cleaning pigsties or washing dishes in a tavern, but that's about as glamorous as it gets. 15-year-old schoolboy Alex has dreams of working as a space guide. All they can think of is the stars, but life gets in the way, and now his only path to achieving that goal is through the game. And that is the novel description, and I'll be honest, I absolutely agree that neither the cover art nor the novel description really do an amazing job of telling you what the story is about or giving you hints or like hooking you in a lot of ways. Like the cover is a little bland, not just because it's black and white. Actually, I like black and white, but they're just people sitting there. And if you've read the story, that totally absolutely makes sense. That's a good portion of like the beginning, like 15-20% of the story describing like this, this attitude of the main character of just like wanting to sit around instead of playing the game because he kind of messed up his character. But again, it doesn't really, I think, justify that this isn't actually a good story and that it's actually set in a fantasy MMO VR world. Again, that's definitely not conveyed with the like modern dress clothing on the cover art. So I just full disclosure, I received a copy for review. I purchased a copy when it became available. There are some minor translation issues and a few phrases that don't get quite translated right in the story. It's nothing that breaks the story for me, at least, but you're going to probably notice them. This is a Russian translated novel from the author of the Level Up series. It has a few things in common with that series, I think, and I think there's just themes to the author's writing. This is a slice of life story, and it has themes related to hard work causing self-improvement and power games, not just luck. And I think that's something worth mentioning just because a lot of stories that come from Russia that are translated, they kind of, this is just my opinion and experience based upon reading them, they seem to sometimes focus on just like luck giving the main character like this big boost, and that kind of being the thing that their special ability, their special power, that they just happen to get lucky and they fall into like greater power structures. In the author's novels, where there's the Level Up series or this one here, there's always like this shift in that kind of storytelling. Yes, there's sometimes some luck, and then the main character will get some particular skill or ability or technology. But there's also a subset of like that I think really resonates, at least with me as an American or American audiences, that hard work is really the key to progress and to power gain and to that power curve structure that are in LitRPG stories. And that definitely comes across here, even though the main character does kind of eventually get this OP skill and these overpowered abilities, it's not without cost. It's very hard for the main character to use. There's definitely a pain cost associated with it, and to progress, he has to work super hard. And I think that's one of the things that, for me in particular, I've always really enjoyed about these series. Like, a lot of the author's writing has really just been slice of life stuff, where in the Level Up series, it's you're following the main character as he's going through the modern world with this RPG system, but he still has to work hard, and it's still very engaging. In this one here, it's a little more traditional-ish MMO fantasy stuff, in that the main character is he's leveling up, he's going on quests, he's doing these fights, dungeon knives kind of stuff eventually. But there's still that same kind of core aspect of he has to work hard to fulfill his goals, otherwise things are not going to go well. And I think that's something that I've always appreciated, in that the main character isn't just given power. He has to work really hard for it. And for me, that's always one of those interesting things. In the story, like I said, the hardest part of probably getting to the story is going to be getting past the first 15% or so of it. A lot of that first 15% is set up. It's a little I want to say vague and ambiguous about like, where the story is going to be kind of going, because it starts off with the main character being really excited about, this great new virtual reality system that he's getting for his birthday. And he makes his character, and this is minorly spoiler, but he messes up making it. And so then after that, he kind of just jumps like a year ahead where he's no longer really interested and he looks like that guy in the cover because he messed up his character. So it's really almost impossible for him to like level up his character because he just messed up so badly. Then something in life hits, and this is definitely hinted at in the novel description, that something changes in his life. And so now if he's ever going to accomplish his real life goal of like going into space and being one of those people in the far future that's traveling through space, he's going to have to like come up with the money to pay for his education, and his parents can't do it anymore for whatever circumstances, which I won't spoil. And so once he actually has a motivation to improve his life, that's when the story gets interesting. And again, that doesn't really happen until like the 15% mark or so. A lot of that earlier 50% is explaining what the world is, how it's different for adolescents than it is for adults, how the starter area is. They call it something else. I think they mean like a walled garden, but they call it like a sandbox. So I'm like, okay, that's like one of those little translation issues. But from that 50% on, it's definitely more interesting in that the main character is finally motivated to take his broken character and to work really hard in improving. And he gets lucky, and that luckiness turns into OP ability. But there are definitely consequences for that, and it's not just this is definitely isn't just like an overpowered main character where everything comes to him easily. There are definitely consequences, and I think that's part of the fun of this particular story. Figuring out a way for the main character to take his broken character and improve it and level when it's super challenging, so that he can make money in game to pay for college. And so it's a really interesting kind of system there. And I go into a little bit about some of the game mechanics in this story that make it a little bit different from other stories. But overall, this is kind of a fun slice of life fantasy adventure story. So it's entertaining for me. Additional things in the story that I think are interesting. There are guild politics, player versus player stuff, a little high school social stuff. But again, it's mostly just the main character figuring out how to use his unique circumstances to work towards his goals. I think the ending is a little bit rushed for me, but overall the story is very fun. Game mechanic wise, it's going to be a lot of familiar MMO stuff because that's where it's at. It's an VR MMO. So you're getting things like level, stats, ability, skills, a little bit of crafting. There's a slightly higher emphasis on like gear improving stats and giving stat and skill bonuses. I think the most unique game mechanic in the story is one where the game developers assign players as threats and encourage them to become more powerful or evil characters, and for other players to kill them for special rewards. It's kind of a neat PvP concept that I think I wouldn't mind actually playing around with. It kind of reminds me of some video games where like one player becomes the villain and the other ones are supposed to be like the guys who stop him. And to a degree that's here. There's a little more subtlety to it here, and that the main character has to kind of hide that aspect of it. And if you sign up, then it becomes more of a straightforward cat and mouse game. But it's, like I said, it's a unique little twist on that kind of general MMO stuff. Overall, I had a good time with the story. I did. It was a little challenging and to get past that first 50% and stay super engaged. But again, once the main character started to do the dungeon dives, it was really easy to just like sit back and enjoy the story. But again, it took a little effort. So if you find yourself struggling with that first bit, just try to push past it. I think you'll enjoy it. If you like, again, slice of life stories, if you like good action adventure, good RPG adventuring, if you're okay with like some abilities that are a little overpowered, all that is here. And I enjoy the story. And if book 2 was available now, it is for free order. I would totally read it and buy it today. So I had a good time with it. Get the score of 7.6 out of 10 for me. That's Class A Threat Disgardium book number 1, a little bit of series with a score of 7.6 out of 10.